Hey Sohini, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you though.
Let me just say, yeah, this, where is the video thing here? Um, Give me a second. I am not able to go on video.
There going to be like this one thing in the bottom
Yeah, it's
where
not showing right now.
am I
So,
supposed to do? I promoted you to panelist. I don't know if I'm supposed to do something to give you permission. Am I supposed to give you permission?
I think that should not be an issue because let me try and rejoin. I think, did I just join using audio? Because I don't see the video.
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to like just try doing that?
Yes, yes, I will.
Okay. Sweet. All right. Okay.
I am still not. Shoini, I think I'm not able to join via video. It's just
Okay.
allowing me to have, an audio call.
Okay. If you like even below like where
Yeah,
where
where
you
there
have
is a
participants and everything, it's not letting you do that.
no, I can't even see participants.
Oh, that's so okay. So we can we can just probably just take off like even did you leave again? No, you're here. Oh, yay! But it's automatically wait, hang on. I don't even see you.
Oh,
Oh
can
no
you
no no
not?
no 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 no! I couldn't see your name over there. No no, I could
Okay,
see I can see you, but I couldn't
okay,
see your
fine.
name
Hi.
over like the participants saying hi. This thing is so finicky. I am not great with this
I
thing.
know. I mean, I tried logging in like what, 5 times now to get in here and to show
Yeah.
the video. That's fine.
Hi.
Yeah. Hey, so
How are
how's it?
you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. How are you guys doing there?
Fine at home. Uh, like we'll see. I think they're lifting the stay-at-home orders like state-wise.
Ah, yes.
So yeah, so I think every governor is going to decide for themselves for their own states, like how they're going to go ahead with it. So yeah. Like
Okay.
in Ohio, where I am from, that they're planning to lift it like from May 1st, but not everything, like very slowly. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, by the way, I heard that in Ohio they have this. Is the Nationwide Children's Hospital in Ohio?
So they
Yeah.
started a new thing in Columbus, especially
Yeah.
in like neuroscience. They started this whole big group,
Facility.
yeah, facility and everything. Yes, it's in
Yeah.
Columbus. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I was just reading the other day with respect to one of the projects that I am doing, and that struck me. Like I said, okay, so yeah, Ohio has this big viral vector facility going on there.
they
So
do, they do.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's nice.
Okay, so since it's already 9:31, so
Yeah,
I guess we can go ahead and start with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Or do we want to give people like a minute or so to join in?
Or we can do that. We can start at like let's like 9:35, 5 minutes. We
Yeah,
can just chat and everything.
exactly. So that everybody can
There's
join.
like, yeah, because it does take some time for like, at least I know, like when I try to log in through Zoom, like initially everything freezes and then I don't know what to do and then everything is
Yeah.
working again. So it's very weird that way.
So I logged in like thrice, and every time it would not give me permissions to go on a video, and I was like, okay, fine. So this is going to
Yeah,
be
that's so strange. Yeah. No, but that's why I was like, can we do this before? Because I have no idea. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be something or the other that
some
will happen.
something that's just not gonna work at the end time. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
How are things in Delhi?
So because everybody is holed up in their houses right now, so things are getting delivered to your places. There is no help, so you end up doing everything else apart from the stuff that you regularly used to do. And
Right.
like we say in India, that we're spoiled because you get so much help. And then suddenly you're sent into this crash course of beta ab sab tumhe khud aana chahiye kind of a deal.
Exactly. So you have to like cook and this and that and
Yeah.
everything apart from your actual work. Yeah.
Yeah, and because you're not into a habit of doing that, because when you are in states, you are in a habit of doing everything by
Right,
yourself,
right,
so
right,
that does
right.
not pinch you that much. But when
Yeah.
you are here and you don't do stuff, but then you end up doing stuff, so yeah, that's a I would say a rough transition, but yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
yeah, I don't, again, like there's been lots of talks. It's like, how long can you keep this lockdown going on for? Not just for anything, but also for like financial reasons and everything. Like US
Oh
is in a
yeah.
crazy place, so can't even say anything. Like opening up
I
will have to be
heard that
very
there are
careful.
around 30 million people who are filing for that unemployment,
That's yeah,
kind of a thing,
it's
and
a lot.
that's
Like,
scary.
yeah, it is scary. Like even the place where I live, like I have seen people just like vacate, and I don't know if they're leaving because they have to leave or like they were going to leave anyway. But like we were told that nobody is going to be, you know, like nobody's going to be kicked out because they cannot pay rent and all that stuff. So again, yeah.
And with this new immigration policy also coming into effect, which Trump, I said, I heard it two,
Yeah,
3 days
I think
ago.
it's very like I've actually been following the news mostly through Stempiers only because I like for me reading all those documents and trying to find out I might as well like somebody understand it and then explain it to me and then that's
Yeah,
better. Um so okay, yeah.
yeah.
So it's very interesting being on this side of the Zoom than
I
being
know.
on the other side.
I know.
Because you're like, oh, you get used to seeing all these things.
Yeah.
But I forgot what we were talking about.
We were talking about nobody's being kicked out because they're not, being allowed to.
Yeah. So that's like nobody's being kicked out because of that, which is a good thing. Like, yeah.
Even here in
Um,
India, they're opening cities and, at least small shops, because the people who are not big shop owners are being
yeah.
affected. So they're opening shops now in phased manners. At least all the shops who are in, normal lanes and stuff, not in big malls or in bazaars. So they will
Right.
remain closed, because then, there's a tendency of people to just start flocking markets and stuff to buy. So all those
Exactly.
small
Exactly.
kirana
Yeah.
shops, so to speak,
Yeah.
they're opening. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think a government cannot close it for a very long time, because
Mm-mm.
then how will
Like
people eat?
that will be yeah. That there's just it's like such a weird situation. Like you don't want to open because then you're
Yeah,
endangering people's lives. You keep them close and you're still kind of affecting them
affecting
in a
them.
different way. it's a very,
So,
yeah.
there's a saying of, caught between a rock and a hard place. So it's just like there's nowhere to go.
Exactly. Huh.
You do this,
App description.
yeah, you do this, you are going to be criticized. You do that, people are going to take pot shots at you. So,
Exactly. Yeah. So again,
and plus,
yeah.
I think you guys should be ready to get injected with disinfectants and
Oh
UV
God.
lights and stuff. That's really amusing to hear. At
Oh,
least we don't have to do that.
there's so many memes now. They're like, people are like, oh, it feels like we're living in a movie or something. And I was like, oh, I have stopped watching news because I am like, this is.
Oh, fun fact. I joined Twitter during the COVID crisis, and going on Twitter makes me anxious. I'm like, oh my God, this is like apocalypse. And the world is such a sad place to live in. Everybody's killing everybody. I get
I
anxiety attacks after going to
Yeah.
Twitter. So I
When you're
stopped
like, oh,
going to
people
Twitter.
are like so weird. It's very weird. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I
But
think,
I think we can like
yeah,
start, and then again as and when people join,
yes.
they'll know.
And as and when, people have
Yeah.
questions, happy to answer
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome to everybody who's listening in. Just a very short intro. I'm Shohini, and I am actually very, very delighted to do this interview and interact with Renu. I spoke to her once before, and it's been great, as you can, and I'm excited for all of you to get an insight into this wonderful career transition that you have done, going from PhD, completing your PhD, and then working as a life science consultant right now. And I mean, first of all, congratulations for doing
Thank
that, because
you.
it's not very common. It's not very heard of. It's something that I feel like is still like a thing. Oh, is this a thing, and how to get into that? But you did it. So congratulations for that. But before we start, do you want to just like briefly introduce yourself, and then we can go into the actual interview part of it?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for your kind words showing it. I mean, they made my Sunday evening.
Oh,
Nobody
good.
says nobody says such nice things about you anywhere else. I think we should do these webinars. Just like that, so that you can feel
Lift
good
each
about
other up.
yourself. Yeah, just to cheer you each other up.
Yeah.
So coming back to my brief introduction. So hi, I'm Renu Pandey. I did my PhD from University of Delhi. So I was basically a biologist. So I did my PhD in longevity and aging and that sort of things. And then after, I got awarded my PhD, I transitioned into consulting. So I'm currently working as a business analyst in Deloitte USI. So that is the Indian arm of the Deloitte US firm. And I'm working as a business analyst right now. So that's a brief description. Probably what I do more would be the next question. So yeah.
Yeah, I think before we even go into that, so it's like, I think, again, when you're in academia, you have options. For some people, it's mostly like you get into academia again, you continue in that route, and then you have your own lab, or you become a teacher or something. So you decided to switch from academia, like go into this. What made you do that? Like, how did you come across this? Like, why did you not want to stay in academia?
Yeah, good point. And I think most of us who are currently in PhDs or are towards the end of our PhDs would be mulling over this option very often. So I
Right.
think that question came to me, while I was transitioning towards my later part of PhD. So
Okay.
I was in my fourth year of my PhD when I started thinking, what is it that I want to do next?
Right.
Science was very dear to me. That's how you survive PhD, or else you would not be able to survive PhD if you are not, if you don't like doing science. So I
Right.
really did love doing my science. I had pretty good publications, but there was this constant thought in my head that fine, I can, with this kind of publication, I can definitely get a postdoc outside. But, there was no certainty in my science career. How long will I keep on doing postdocs? And while I was following a lot of people on CSG, I
Mm-hmm.
realized that you go on J1s. There are few folks who get really good mentors who actually help them grow as scientists and
Right.
who help them grow as persons. But there were a substantial part that also land up in pathetic labs and with pathetic people. And because you are on J1, you do not have a lot of other options as well.
Right.
So all of this was also running at the back of my head, and I was like, okay, fine. So academia is like a very tough nut to crack. you can end up doing postdocs, which is good. And if if you end up in a good law, that's a very good proposition for us doing PhDs, because that's what we essentially begin with. But
Right.
I was like, I started getting more interested in the business side of science, because there was ideas around startups that would pop up in my head and stuff like that. But I had no information whatsoever as to what goes into the outer world apart from bench. So that was
Right.
a second factor that, propelled me into looking at other opportunities. And because I was more interested in the business side of science, I wanted to look at the opportunities that can help me understand what is this side. We know
Right.
all the experimentation, but how do you get experiments from bench to a patient or to the right customer?
Right. So you talk about like being interested in the business side of it. Is it again like, did you just like read up on entrepreneurs and everything, or was it like something that you developed again while you were doing your PhD, and you were like, you knew that obviously what we do in the research, especially in pharmaceutical industries, it has to come out in the market in some way or the other. So what like, is it business was it something that you were always interested in, or was it something that you got introduced into and you wanted to learn more about when you were doing your while you were doing your PhD?
Yeah, that's again a very good question. So I would say that it was a subtle transition into all of this. If I would have been very inclined to do business early on, I would have joined a B school right after my undergrads or my masters. I wasn't
Right.
sure. I wanted to be a scientist, and that's why I joined PhD. But during
Right.
the course of PhD, so I think my lab also has a great role to play in that, because our lab was more into diagnostics and stuff apart from molecular biology that we do. So they
Right.
created kits which were later commercialized. So I
Oh,
already was at least exposed to the idea that science can be commercialized. And
right.
then I had this wonderful group of friends, and we would sit around, go on those long PhD chai talks for
Yeah.
hours all together and discuss, okay, there are these guys in, let's say, Edinburgh or Dublin, that they're doing this thing. They've kind of commercialized artificial milk and stuff like that. How can we do it? So all of these talks somehow planted that seed of going towards the business side of science,
Right.
because the lab was one environment, your friends and peers are other environment, and so that's how it all started.
Okay. Just briefly, just to let everybody know, we can see the questions that come up. So we'll try and answer them when we get to those points. But if we still don't, just remind us, and then we'll definitely go ahead and like Renu will
Yeah.
definitely go into those and answering those questions. Okay, so business side of it again. So did you, when we talk about, again, I'm not somebody who's very aware, to be very honest. So
Yeah,
like
sure.
when you talk about business part of it, like was consulting something that your first option, or how did you learn about the whole point, like the whole job of being a life science consultant? Like where did
Yeah.
that, how did you get introduced into that very specifically where you are right now?
So
Like,
in that case, I think CSG was very helpful. So I got introduced into CSG by one of my friends who was in US. So she told me that, Renu, there is this very nice group where all of us, kind of gather and discuss difficulties that PhDs face in terms of
right.
their labs, careers, and everything. So she introduced me to CSG. And while I was on CSG, they started this program called as mentor-mentee program, the Gurukul, CSG Gurukul.
Gurukul,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So I enrolled in Gurukul, and I had those one-on-one interactions with Ananda and Vishwanidham. So he was in India, so he was assigned my mentor. So we
Okay.
had those discussions frequently around what is it that I would like to do. So during those discussions as well, and I think Varun Vadwani, I think he sort of had initiated the CSG consulting group. So I joined that group. So I
Okay.
could see that, in CSG, when the fields would come up, people were trying to get internships in consulting firms, people were transitioning to consulting. But the only thing was that all of this was happening in the Western part of the world. I could
Right.
not see anybody who was in India who I could reach out to and say that, how did you do it? So they would
Right.
apply for all these MBB kind of consulting groups, and they would get internships there. And then from internships, they transition. I did
Right.
not have that kind of a template here to follow in India. So I reached out to Vishwan Nidam and then Ananda, and we had discussions. So they said that if you're really interested in it, why don't you, start exploring? So I
Right.
got introduced to consulting through CSG,
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
answers the question.
Yeah. Even Gurukul, like I joined Gurukul like in March, I forget,
Yeah.
like basically beginning of this year. It's been so helpful, like things that you had no idea,
Yeah.
like even just this, what is happening right now,
Yeah.
like because you, again, because you're so much into this world of the bench work and into like, you know, lab, doing work in the lab, like knowing that there is a field out there where it's not just wet lab research, but
Yes.
there's more to science. You do definitely get exposed to all that through Gurukul and through CSG. And then, yeah, I've like, so far I've been here only for a couple of months and I've just
Mm.
benefited so much from that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great. So yeah, so one of the questions is from Nidhi, which says, since life science consulting is not as common in India, how did you get the idea about it? And I'm hoping that your earlier thing kind of answered that. Um, are you able to see the questions, by the way, Renu?
I can.
Yeah,
Yeah. And what exactly is life science consultancy and how to start searching for it after postdoc
yeah,
experience, how to get into it.
yeah. So
So
that,
there are two questions. Let me answer them one by one. So
yeah, so maybe
hi,
we can,
Sapna.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we can go ahead with Nidhi's first and then
Okay.
we, yeah,
So, hi Nidhi, since life sciences consulting is not as common on India, how did you get an idea about it? So,
yeah,
I think partially I answered it that, I got introduced to all of these consulting kind of frameworks through CSG and also by talking to other friends who were from business school. So, you always have this pool of friends who branch out after your school and graduations and then they end up doing multiple things. So, while I was on CSG, I also reached out to my circle of friends to understand what they were doing. So some of them, after their B schools, ended up in these consulting firms. So from CSG as well as through all of my these friends, when I reached out to them and I asked them that how is the consulting field in India and are there life sciences consulting companies that I can reach out to? So then I came across that MBB and the Big Four, all
mhm,
of them do consulting in life sciences and they have their uh, I would say groups and practices based out of India as well. So that
right,
was first thing that I got through. And
right,
then the second question is from Sapna, who asked that what exactly is life science consultancy and how to start searching for it. So Sapna, I would tell you what life sciences consultancy means is it's very simple. For example, I work for uh, currently, let's say I'm a big pharma or a mid-size or a small-size pharma company. Let's say I am Johnson and Johnson's or Pfizer. Now I have a product that I have developed and I want that product to come to market to reach to the patients. So the company has a product. First of all, consultancy means that they want help from outside groups to help them understand a particular problem. Now, because that problem happens to be in life sciences space, that becomes life sciences consultancy. It can be from identifying a lead molecule. So they have like 30 molecules that they're working on, and they want our help in identify what could be their best potential molecule to take forward. Second, it could be what is the market potential of a product. So they already have zeroed down on the product and they want us to tell them that what is the market potential of the product. Is it even worth taking this product through all the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials, because that would also require a lot of money. And then thirdly, they have a product, they have that product which has fast kind of passed through all of these phases. So how do they launch it? What would be the best idea or the best way so that they can reach to the kind of patients that they want to reach to? So all of this bucket. Also, then there are life sciences mergers and acquisitions, a smaller company being acquired by a bigger company. How do they do that? Which company to acquire, and is the valuation correct? So all of this comes under life sciences consultancy. Okay,
okay.
so yeah.
So I think, yeah, so that was actually one of my questions that I did want to ask you. So good that we went into that. But I'm going to go back again and talk about your transition. So you had friends who were in
Yeah.
like into consulting, and you kind of knew that you went into the business side of it. And you said like, while there are internship options available in the western part of the country, there of the world, there weren't much in India. So
Exactly.
how did you prepare to do this transition? So again, um, like not going through the management courses, not having to take any of the management courses, how did you go from, again, having a PhD in the field of biology to going into a life science consulting job?
So first of all, I reached out. So after insistence from Ananda and other folks in the CSG Gurukul, I decided to create a LinkedIn profile, and then I asked them to kind of review if the LinkedIn profile looked okay or not. And then
Right.
they asked me to reach out to people who are already in consulting, who have transitioned from PhD to consulting, and probably reach out to them. So I reached out to around 80 to 100 odd people, of which I think 10 responded. So so the success rate
Yeah.
was pretty low, but then that's what I did. So then
Right.
I set up informational interviews with them. So to understand what exactly do they do, how did they get into it? Because through CSG, I already knew that there are a lot of PhD folks who transition to consulting. All I wanted to do
Okay.
was exactly who are they and if I can get an opportunity to speak with them.
Right.
So I found those folks, I spoke with them, and then these guys told me that, there is a long process. It's like solving case interviews, giving guesstimates and stuff like that, which I, as a PhD, had no idea what were they even talking about. So
Right. Same. Yeah.
then I sort of called my friends who were in consulting, because by my own, I would not have been able to prepare that well.
Right.
Though there are these websites, portals, and books that you can refer to. So I can give you names of few websites like Prep Lounge, Consulting 101, and stuff like that. So
Okay.
they give you, sample questions that you can prepare. And then there is this, I think, book that is freely available called as Vault Consulting, which also gives you pretty basic idea. So what I
Okay.
did was I started using them. I started reading a lot of business type articles. I started going back to Investopedia to understand what those business terms mean. Because by
Right.
then I knew that the interview would be mostly business type of interview and less of science. Nobody is going to ask me, how did you identify the molecular path that led to this? Because nobody
Right.
cares.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So then my friends helped me, into this preparation journey by giving me guesstimates, taking random my mock interviews. And I took these subscription also in Consulting 101 and Prep Lounge, so that I can get 101 coaching on how to solve these
Okay.
case interviews, because that is the most critical part of it.
So case and like
Yes.
having the cases, the case interviews. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So like again, so this was while you were doing your PhD or no? This is after you've already done or while you were doing your PhD. So when
So
exactly did you start preparing for this transition?
So
Uh,
that's a very good question, Shoini. I would like to tell you that consulting is, a field where networking helps a lot. So you have to prepare your groundwork at least a year prior to the date or to the time when you think that you're going to enter into consulting, because
okay,
it
that's
takes
good
a
time.
lot of
Yeah.
preparation. So if you think that, I start today and I look today, probably I'll get interviews and I'll get shortlisted and I'll crack them. It is
Mhm.
a little difficult unless you've prepared and you've done your groundwork.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So like having like a year, giving yourself at least a
At
year to
least a
like
year,
preparing for
because
it.
you're very new to this field, you would not understand a lot of terms, you would not understand what they want to hear. So
Yeah.
definitely keeping in touch with people who already are into consulting and who can at least at times take a mock interview. And if you are even able to get a, I would say, informational interview, that those are super helpful, because then you understand what is the ask of the job.
Right. Right. Um. So I think along this lines, there's one question from Kriti, which is like, do you think transition is good right after PhD? I'm a third year PhD in Delhi, and I'm really interested into consultancy. Please suggest what are the job profiles that are available after a PhD experience.
Okay, I think she already is a PDF, so that means she's a
Oh, PDF.
postdoctoral fellow.
Yeah.
So she's through her PhD.
Yeah.
And please suggest what are the job profiles available after a PDF experience. So I think the job profile remain the same. So you get at a very, I would say, entry level position into any consulting firm in
Okay.
US, because all of these consulting firms in different geographies hire PhDs at different level. For
Right.
example, in US, a PhD right out of their PhD school or a PDF would be hired as a consultant, whereas in Europe they get hired as senior consultants as well, and consultants.
Okay.
Whereas in India, because there was no groundwork as such of how PhDs would perform, because in my team, for example, in Deloitte USI, most of the people do have medical background. So there are even doctors who have joined here, but they have MBAs to kind of supplement it. I am like
Right.
the only person who dropped in from somewhere without any business
Without
degree.
him.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think that bit of a groundwork is necessary, and job profiles remain the same. So you can enter into life sciences consulting as a consultant.
Okay. Okay.
Want to enter.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so there's a question from Sandipan. Hi, Renu. Did you begin your job search in terms of networking, case factories, etc., in order to get an interview from Deloitte? How did you begin your job search?
Okay,
I
so
feel
job
part.
search, yeah, I like I said, networking is super important. So when you reach out to people, they tell you, you know, what kind of what is the ask of the job, what is the demand of the job, and then you get a sense whether you really want to go into that direction or not. And
Mhm.
in terms of my job search, I used to look for, I used to follow these MBB companies as well as the big fours, and I would, you know, go to their career pages and see what positions are open. And
Okay.
most of these companies also post on LinkedIn careers. So I used to, you know, regularly check my LinkedIn profile to see if there's any opening on this side, and as well as go to their individual websites and see if there is an opening, which sort of suits me if they have an opening for an experienced hire, because that's how they classify PhD as. So if
Right.
there is a lateral entry option, I would apply. So
Okay.
that's how I
Okay.
began my job search.
Yeah. So there's another question that I had, and it kind of goes with a question that was asked, like, what skills that you learned in during your PhD could you take to your current job profile right now? Like transferable skills or anything like that helped you at least partly with the preparing for the job interview or applying for the jobs or even getting the job finally.
Yeah, so I think the best skill that PhDs can sell is
Yeah,
probably being able to take a problem head on and solve it. So in
right.
consulting, especially in strategy consulting, the projects are very, I would say, shorter duration. So for example, I've not worked on a project which is more than 2 months. So in that short span of time, I have a problem that I need to now solve. So
Okay.
as PhDs, we already are sort of, you know, attuned to having problems and then breaking down those problems into smaller sub problems and then tackling them one at a time. So this is
Right.
a skill that is very important in consulting. So if you get bogged down by the problem as a whole and you're not able to address it, so then that also leads to a lot of mental pressure. However, if you can see the problem, break it down into manageable parts, and then address one at a time, and then you know, entirely come up to solve the problem, that is what one of the very important transferable skills that I sold while my PhD interview.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So this is actually a question that I had myself. Again, consulting, when you hear, you know that these are the people who have done their MBAs and now they were prepared for this, like they did this, right? So even when you have like a year to prepare, like knowing all the terms and everything, how difficult is it? Well, I assume it's going to be very difficult, right? You're basically competing for a job where they would be hiring people who have done their MBAs. I'm assuming. Again, this is me
Yeah.
assuming. So, like, so you when you work, are you working with people who already have their MBAs, and
Yes.
then like, right? So, how do you get to a stage where you're like, okay, I am as good as these guys. And so you know that you're at a position where you will be hired or you have a chance of getting hired by these big fours coming from absolutely no official education as far as the management part is concerned.
Yeah, so that is a good question, because however much you prepare, you will never get to the rigors of consulting until you enter consulting. So
Mm.
once you are in there, the learning curve is really steep, because even if you follow all the jargon for a month, you would not actually understand what they want until you get into the, you know, like they say, when the rubber meets the ground, it's then the real action happens.
Right.
So when I joined consulting, I thought that I felt I was like lost. I didn't know what to do, because they have these set frameworks, they have deadlines, and I, as a PhD, was, you know, used to having my own deadlines. Okay, I mean, if the PI says that you need this experiment delivered, it didn't work, I can again put it and stuff. But
Right.
because it is a client deliverables and you have deadlines, it takes time for you to understand how everything works. And because every project is new, you cannot use what you learned in the previous project in the new project. So
Right.
it is learning by doing. Initially, it is going to be really hard. And because these MBB, I mean, all of these consulting firms, they take their business graduates, also the top 1% of the business graduates from all of the schools. So the people, your colleagues, are really smart folks. You cannot, if you have to kind of compete with them, and because you're competing for the same resources, you have
Right.
to actually know your stuff. So you have to do a little bit more secondary research. When you are on a project, you'll have to put in more time to be as
Right.
good as them. And then
Right.
slowly, once you start learning the ropes of the game, it becomes okay, manageable.
Okay. Okay.
Initially, it's
So
really hard.
I'm sure. Yeah. Like again, when you hear about it, like when I first heard about it, I was like, that's tremendous that she could do it. Because because you hear all this, it's like coming from a science perspective, I probably wouldn't know most of the management terms or like
Yeah.
most of the terms that come with it. So while we are still on this, I would like just one last question that just again so that people who are listening in, they just know how to prepare for it. So you said like you talk to people, you network with people, and
Yes.
then you had like you subscribe to some websites and some
Yeah.
courses. Yeah. So I think maybe what we can do is once I can like if you could share those resources, I can probably put that up on Stempier so that people are aware of it. Like what are the
Sure.
resources that you use so that they also know in case some of them from the missed out while
Done.
into the interview. So it was basically a year of you talking to people, like
Yeah.
having informational interviews, acquainting yourself with all the management terms, and then solving case studies and everything,
Yeah.
right? So uh, this might sound like a very stupid question, but at what point of time did you know that okay, fine, you're ready for it? Like you were ready to apply for the job. Like
I
when?
don't think you'll ever know you're ready. You just keep
Yeah,
applying, and then a job
yeah,
interview happens, and then you sit for it. So
right,
the first interview that I sat for, it sort of goes through phases. So
yeah,
in consulting, my experience was I had around 6 interviews for the same job. So
okay,
from the first HR interview that just wanted to judge how serious I was, or if I was really interested in consulting and why I was transitioning from PhD to consulting. This is
right,
a constant question that everybody needs to prepare if they are getting an interview call, because everybody would ask it that
right,
why you're a PhD, why are you transitioning to consulting? So that was the first round. Then I had the second round, which was a guesstimate round, wherein on call they gave me a random question about, okay, so how many footballs do you think are currently being sold in India? That was the question that they asked me, and then you have to calculate, you have to assume things in that half an hour time, and then you have to give them a number, and then you have to support that number as to why did you come up with that number.
oh
So
wow,
that was the guesstimate round. The third
okay,
round, I was called at Deloitte office, and then there was this full-blown case interview where they gave me a question, and then there were sub-questions to that, and I was asked to solve them. And why? How did I come up with that number? So I was
okay,
sitting with a senior manager and a manager, and I was solving it. So
okay,
that was the third round. The fourth round was with again a senior manager. It was a phone interview, I remember. And he asked me a guesstimate again. I don't know
okay,
why, but he again asked me to just to make sure that I can probably solve it. And then the final round was with a partner. So I had, I spoke with a partner in Deloitte, US, because this is a Indian arm of the US firm. So I spoke with her. And then I think another round was with an Indian firm partner who wanted to speak to me. So there were
okay,
around 6 rounds that I had to go through before they finally rolled the offer out.
okay, wow. So I think that would probably answer the question that Aniket had asked, which is like, can you share your experience with the recruitment process right from HR to the assessment test to on-site interview? So
Yeah,
I hope I answered your question, Aniket. Before we move on, Vamika had another question. Did you do any internships while preparing for your transition? Also, how did you prepare yourself for getting the interviews and cracking it later? I think you already answered the
yeah.
latter part of it. Um, Vamika, if she introduced herself, she's from Philadelphia. So,
Mhm.
again, would you be able to have any insights into like internships as far as it's concerned
Yeah.
here in USA?
So if you go to their websites, these companies also start, their they visit most of the good campuses in US to hire business folks, and they also, I think my battery is a bit down, so I'll have to find a charger. So give me
Okay,
a second.
that's fine.
But I'll answer this question and go fetch a charger for myself.
Okay.
So first things first, you look at their portals. If there are internship openings, you apply there. Secondly, you look around your campus. These companies mostly, they do campus outreach programs, wherein they go to PhD schools as well as business schools, and then you can attend their seminars. So most of these companies give seminars in campuses. So you go, you attend them, and then you can start talking to their representatives who are there and ask if internships are available and stuff like that. So that's how you get initiated into internships in US. That's what I know.
Okay. Okay. Vamika, does that answer your question? If you could let us know, otherwise we can go ahead with the next one. Nithya asked a question. Do you want to get your charger, or do we want to move on to the next question?
Let me get a charger. Just
okay.
Excuse me for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
इधर लगेगा क्या? Yeah, I'm back.
Sweet. All right. So there's one question from Nidhi, which is how.
Sorry, I forgot my headphones. Yeah.
All right. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one question from Nidhi, which is how did you get the first interview call? Meaning how, and I think there's another question is how to also prepare the resume, which is one question it's in the chat box. We have two different question answer boxes going on.
Yeah.
This is in the chat box.
So the first interview call, I think my resume was pretty standard. It was a one pager. So in PhDs, we generally have multiple page profiles. So I was told by my business friends that, nobody has time to go through 10 pages of your resume. So you're not applying for a academic position, squeeze your resume and put a one pager. So I created a one-page resume with all my education, my publications, and my presentations, the oral and poster presentations that I did, and as well as all the educational credentials and the extracurricular activities that I performed. So all of that was a one-pager succinct resume that I also got reviewed by my CSG Gurukul mentors so that, they align with it. So that is super helpful. So once you draft your resume, send it out to these folks on STEM peers, CSG groups, and they will help you definitely, cut it short and make it more attractive.
Right. Okay. So I think there was another question, which is somebody asked, it was an anonymous question, where to search for consultancy internships? And I think you said like going into the companies, the website, and then looking through
at your
those
campuses.
And at your campuses. Okay.
Yeah.
Abhishek has asked, how much of your job profile involves tracking ongoing clinical trials, looking into different disease conditions that a certain molecule could be involved in when you are preparing a life cycle management plan for a client?
So that's a good question. I would not say that most of my time goes into tracking clinical trials and stuff. That depends on what the problem that comes from the client side is. For example, if they want to understand, giving you an example here, one of the projects that I worked with, the client was interested in setting up a viral vector manufacturing facilities. So in order to substantiate clients' aspiration of setting a viral vector manufacturing facility, we did some clinical trial, clinicaltrial.gov search to identify how many gene and cell therapy trials are going on, so that that can be back calculated to how much demand of viral vector is there. So in proposing statements like that, you would require to do a little bit of research. But as such, my job is not to maintain some kind of a database of what is happening on clinical trials. That's not my job. My job is to prepare answers specific to what the client would want. So for example, if there is a organization transformation kind of a project where, let's say, company has 2-3 products currently, and they are trying to increase their product portfolio in oncology to, let's say, 20 in coming years, 10 years. So their current organization structure would not fit that way. They would need to reorganize. So how do I do that? In that case, I do not have any use of going to clinical trials. I need to understand what each department does, what their responsibility would be, what roles and responsibility, how would they change in future, and who should do what later on. So then in that case, there's no use of tracking clinical trials.
Okay. Wow. All right. Yeah. So a few questions, and then we can get back on to the some more questions that I have for you. Hi again. Compared to MBB, are cases different asked by Deloitte USI or other Big Four?
I don't think you have to be consistently prepared. So the case interviews essentially would give you a problem that a company is facing, and then you will have to strategically and structurally, put that question and answer these questions. So that is exactly the same that happens for any these big three MBB consulting firms and the Big Four. So you have similar kind of questions, if that answers the question.
Okay. Yeah. So Kriti asked something again, as far as I guess interviews are concerned. She said, I have given a couple of interviews and I felt that we even require a good knowledge of finance and economy. What are your thoughts on that?
We do. That's why I said that preparation cannot happen just with one portal or one thing. You have to reach out to people who can help you prepare, because by our own, we are not in a position to understand exactly what goes out and what kind of questions might be asked. So in that case, these websites wherein you get real world kind of questions which were asked by these firms to some of the participants help. So you understand that these are the questions that can be asked. Also, I would like to say that these MBB groups have sample questions on their websites as well. So if you get time, you can go and start solving those. And if you are able to solve those, then you're kind of positively reinforced to understand that probably you might be able to do it when they ask you to do it.
Right, right. Okay, and one last question on the chat over here. Is there a pay scale disparity between an MBA consultant and a PhD consultant?
So I think in any organization, when you enter, there are pay bands that they have set for a particular designation. So for example, if you are hired as a business analyst, there is a pay band in which you would play. So based on your experience and what you bring to the table and how you negotiate with the HR, your pay band would be within that bracket. Similarly, for consultants, there is a pay band. So you would fall within that pay band. And depending on how many years of experience you have, what you bring to the table, and what are the needs of the companies, you can then have negotiations with HR to, identify what exactly your remuneration will be.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Sounds good. I am going to go through some of the questions. I think we covered actually most of the questions through the questions from the people and just talking. But in general, can you now that which is actually kind of goes along with the question that was there, now that you've already transitioned here, would you have done something differently while during the whole process, while applying for jobs, or what would be your what would be the 5 most important points that you would like to tell people who are trying to make this transition, or who are at least looking into making this transition, going into consulting, some general stuff which would apply to people in the western part of the world and also to people in India, especially not going through any kind of management courses?
So I would say that first of all, be prepared to reach out, to make cold calls, because we as PhDs we are not very forthright into reaching out to people randomly. So one, create a very good LinkedIn profile and start reaching out to people and telling them that why are you reaching out with them and what is it that they can help you with. Because if you just send LinkedIn request without a message, I realized that probably when you write a message and you send a request, people are more likely to respond than just receiving a random request where they're like, why should I accept this person's request?
Right.
So write a good message, create a LinkedIn profile, reach out to people, conduct informational interviews, talk to them. What is it that they did? Because talk to people who have transitioned from PhD to consultant, because they would be the people who would be able to tell you what did they do that clicked, and what are the rigors of the game that you should know, what are the key rules that you should be aware of. Thirdly, go through all these websites and whatever reading material you can get. And like somebody asked me, you need to have some understanding of economics and finances. Not a very thorough understanding, because people understand you're coming from PhD. You cannot compete with somebody who has a major in finance or a major in economics. So, but a basic understanding of all of these terms definitely help, because nobody is going to ask you, define what a nucleotide is or how did this epigenetic change happen. They will be more concerned in terms like what was the turnover, what was the revenue like, what was the cash on flow. So acquainting yourself with these terms definitely helps. Also, I would suggest people to follow websites like Fierce Pharma, because all of the updates in pharma world comes there. So you will at least know that there are terms that are being frequently used, and you will go back and search for that.
Okay. All right. So again, you talked about you did informational interviews and everything. So when you were doing this, what were like some things that you learned which you were like, oh, like, okay, again, being that it's completely different and everything, but were there some things that you were like, oh, okay, so this is like you had no idea, and this is something that would have like is something that you need for going into consult? I did not frame that question very well, but it's more like what did you like? What were some of the very helpful things that you got when you did your informational interviews, more specifically?
So I think, yeah, to answer that question, Shoini, I would say that the best thing that you get out of any informational interviews was a person's own journey. So you understand that what exactly went into preparing that person for the role, and what are the challenges that this person faced being an academic in training. So that was one thing that is very important for you to understand that how do you prepare, because you have, one thing is very important. If somebody is hiring you for a position, you have to make them believe that you are a best fit for their organization. You have to, the best thing that I got was that you have to have an interview with a mindset that your goals and the organization's goals should align. You are not there to do PhD research, you are there to be a consultant. So how do you convince them so that they understand that you will be a right fit? Because it is going to be a very huge change in terms of environment for you, coming from a lab to directly hopping into a consulting world, which is again high paced, high demand. So that was what I got from the information interviews.
Yeah. What was it like doing this whole thing? Crazy, I'm assuming, like trying to do that was.
It was super crazy. Like, I don't know how did I finally end up being there. Probably was a lucky day that I could solve the questions. I had no idea, because I used to get so bogged down by all these terms, and I was like, oh God, how am I supposed to know what they were doing? But then I think practice makes you perfect. So even after you join, the journey is very uphill. You're not aware with any of this. Your peers are aware, and you are in a team where you are asked to deliver. There are terms that these guys would randomly throw at you, and everybody will understand except you. So you have to be a little open in asking for help, because you cannot be very close, because then you won't be able to deliver. So what is very important is that whenever you are in a fix, reach out to folks. You can, go to them and say that, hey, I heard that it was being said, and I assume that, this is what was being said, but I did not catch this term, or I don't follow what was meant. So people are more than willing to help you out if you reach out to them.
Okay.
So whenever in doubt, reach out to folks.
Right. How does your I'm assuming you love your job and everything. So how does your like day-to-day work look like as a licensed consultant?
So the day starts sometimes very early, depending on when do you have your team calls or client calls. So at times day also starts at 6 a.m. and at times the day also starts at 8 or 9 a.m. So the day starts with calls, and then your manager would tell you what are the asks of the day for each team member. Then you work on those hours. You connect multiple times during the day. Now, considering that everybody is working from home, but working from home in consulting is not that big an issue because generally people are on site. So travel is also one of the component in consulting that people have to consider. It is not that important here in India because this is the offshore arm of USI, of the US in India. But if I were in US, I would be required to travel to client site every Monday morning and then come back on Fridays. So you have to be very ready to travel.
Right.
I think that's it. I forgot what the last question was.
No, that's fine. I'm just looking at the questions before we just move on to some last things. I hope Nishit, you got your answer. His question was, thanks for your experience. I wanted to ask if you do anything differently in terms of preparations and applying for jobs, looking back at the whole process now. Is there anything you'd have done differently?
I think I would have prepared a little bit better because I was still rough on the edges when I sat for interviews. Because what
Right.
I know now, I didn't know then.
Right.
So I think I would have prepared a little better, and I would have. Other than that, I think after talking to so many people, I actually thought that that was the right way to go. You talk to people, you maintain those networks, you look for opportunities, and if it strikes you, because people to go through your resume also matters. Nobody, that's when networking helps. So
Right.
if you have
Exactly. Yeah.
actually spoken to somebody in the company before who can at
Yeah.
least help you refer the CV,
Right.
so at least somebody goes through it and it does not get thrown in the trash.
Right.
So that was also important. So that's why I say in consulting, it's 50% of networking and 50% of what you prepare. So you have
Yeah.
to be very good at networking.
That's a good suggestion for people who are trying to do that. Okay, there's another question from Aniket, which is what specific responsibilities or activities you highlighted in doctoral research or work experience section in your resume that you think might have attracted the recruiters to call you? Also, the specific transferable skills since you did not have any prior life science consultants experience.
So
I
I
think
think
we.
I answered part of this question earlier that you have to project yourself as a problem solver. Somebody
Right.
who does not get bogged down by multiple problems, coming at thrown at you on a short duration of time.
Right.
For example, there are days when you're stuck with a experiment and you're just troubleshooting. So your
Right.
resilience, your perseverance, and your ability to break down a complex problem into smaller subsets and approaching them with that mindset was something that I wanted my resume to show. And
Okay.
those were the skills that I presented in whatever form I could in terms of what projects I did, how did I come about it, what problems I faced. So all of these skills would be important when you do your first HR round, wherein they'll ask you that what were you good at, tell us things where you think that you learned something or something where you failed and what did you learn out of it. So all of these things should kind of be there in a candidate's mind because they should not be taken aback when they are asked those
Right.
questions.
Okay. Nice. So now, like, so you said the big four are definitely, they have the life science consulting in India, like they have those positions. Are there any other companies? Like, how is the life science consulting situation or scenario in India? Like, do you think there's a scope for more growth? Do you think that part is slowly increasing, or is it like what are your experience after you have already joined in and are working in it?
So because I do not specifically deal with Indian clients, so my clients are mostly US clients because we
Right.
do not have Indian clients. This is the Indian arm of the US firm. So
Right.
I am not very aware of what happens in the Indian pharma space. But I
Okay.
am assuming that just about anywhere in the world, because most of these companies have their headquarters or kind of a country headquarter in India as well.
Right.
So they would have those kind of life sciences consulting requirements here in India. But
Right.
definitely it is not up to the scale of what would be there in US, which is the world's biggest market, or in Europe, which people see as a separate market. So Asia
Okay.
Pacific is developing, but most of the action happens in China, Singapore, Thailand, that cohort. India still is catching up, I think so.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's for you now? Like now that you're here and how many years has it? Like,
So I joined in 2017. This is actually my one. I have completed 1.5 years in the firm right now. So
okay.
it's around 1.5 years that I've been here. So yeah.
All right.
So I
So
joined in 2018.
what next? What do you see? Like, what's the
So
next
I'm currently enjoying what I am doing. It's super hectic, but it also gives you that immense satisfaction that you were somehow instrumental in, making something happen and reach out to the right kind of patients. Secondly,
right?
it also allows me to read up what is happening, the latest things that are happening in science. So that also kind of feeds to my love of science, wherein I get to read, okay, this research is happening and I get really excited about it.
Right.
And so currently I'm loving it, but the work-life balance in consulting is pretty skewed. So if you think that you'll get your 8 hours of sleep every day, forget.
Yeah.
You'll have to manage with whatever you get.
Right.
So
I think that
uh, yeah,
everybody tries to look for a job with work-life balance, and I don't think like
there is
there's
no,
yet one where you get the perfect work-life balance when you're trying to,
yeah.
yeah, it's
So
either this or that.
yeah. So currently I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Let's see what future holds and where I can transition to after this experience. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. There is one question, or there are two questions now. Okay, which cities in India have opportunities in license consultancy? Do you?
I think it's the major metro cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. They have one or the other firm there, and who would hire people in licenses consulting. So these big cities, definitely you can get
Okay.
some. And there are some, I would say, indigenous, homegrown, smaller firms who do consulting. So if
Okay.
you kind of happen to, but they don't hire PhDs mostly because they hire people from these schools. They go
Hmm.
there for recruitment. So if you want
Right.
to have a shot in India, it's better that you apply to firms like Deloitte, Accenture, EY, and all of these firms. Because I think McKinsey also hires directly from campuses, and they do
Okay.
not visit PhD campuses in India. So
Okay.
that was one of the things that did not work out for me when I was trying to at least get into the big three,
Right.
because they generally do not do lateral hires. So it
Okay.
was Deloitte, which was open to lateral hiring, which I learned from people who were working in US Deloitte, that they were PhDs and they were hired through laterally. So that's how I applied to Deloitte, India,
So,
USI, and I got in
so lateral hiring is like they do outside of the
campuses.
like, campuses. Okay.
So
Okay.
majority of the chunk that comes into consulting comes from business schools. So they
Right.
do their hiring right from business schools.
Right.
But all the other hires are called as lateral hires. So companies who are open to lateral hiring, you should apply.
Okay. That's helpful to know. I think I think I have covered most of the questions that I kind of wanted to ask you, to be very honest. Yeah. Do we have questions from people who are listening to it? Some other questions from Renu? Like, we'll just open it out for you now.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. So many great insights, like seriously. It's some I think I also would like to get into consulting in the future, maybe not immediately, but it's something I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested in. So again, knowing that giving yourself a year to prepare for it, to get used to everything and to talk to people, that kind of actually helps, so that like in the future I know how much time I should give myself
Definitely.
just to prepare for the whole thing. Oh, thank you, Priti. That was very sweet.
Yeah, thank you for doing.
Do we have any more questions? I think I'm just looking through the question list. I feel like we have answered everything. Oh, yeah, another one.
Yeah, thank you, Veronica. I hope this was helpful and I was just not ranting randomly.
No. Okay, so I guess if there are no other questions,
Yeah.
I think this would be it actually. Yeah. Wow, thank you, Renu. That was like, I didn't even realize where time went today, like seriously. A friend of mine is actually attending and she texted me. She's like, I already have one page full of notes, filled with notes, on everything that I've learned from you.
So
Oh,
that's super nice. If whatever I went through was helpful for all of you guys who attended.
yeah,
Thank you guys for coming up and joining this
I'm sure.
webinar web chat kind of thing.
Yeah. This is good. I like doing it. I like listening to your experience and I learn from it. Do we have 1.5 page now?
Well,
Yeah.
everybody knows who to reach out to in case they want notes. So it's Monica who's been taking all the notes.
So yeah, I guess if people want, maybe they can reach out to you through LinkedIn if
Yes,
they have any
yes, they can.
questions. Yeah.
Sure.
So Renu will be on LinkedIn, and if you have any questions, please reach out. I'll talk to Renu after this is over, and then I'll give you the list of the websites and everything that she mentioned because I also couldn't take notes. Maybe I'll
Yeah,
ask
sure.
Monica, but
Yeah,
I'll ask you, and then I can probably post it on the thread where it was announced.
definitely, definitely.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Renu. This was
Thank you.
great. Yes,
I hope
and
it
we'll
was
definitely be
okay.
in touch.
Sure.
And I hope you have a great rest of the. Well, I hope you have a good coming week, basically. This week is really
I hope
good.
you all have a great day ahead, whoever is in East Coast and is a little starting their day. So
Yes,
I
yeah.
hope you have a great day ahead. And don't get yourself injected with disinfectants in blue light, guys.
No, don't do
Just
that.
stay
Yes.
safe, stay healthy, stay sane.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye. Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.
Bye.